Um, a very good afternoon to everybody. Thanks a lot for taking your time and joining this webinar. This is a joint webinar between Aspire Systems and Microsoft Corporation. The topic of the webinar, as you can see, is cloud solutions for media and entertainment industry. Before getting into the webinar, a few instructions for all the joinees. All of your phones by default will be on mute. In case if you have any questions, you should be seeing a presentation. You should be seeing a chat feature available in the presentation panel. Please type your question there, and at some point in the webinar, we'll try to answer it. We'll keep collecting the questions, and at the end of the session, we'll answer it in a summarized manner. In case if you do not receive an answer today, we'll definitely come back to you with an answer through an email. Thanks again for joining, and the broad agenda for this webinar will be a brief introduction about Aspire Systems, the kind of media solutions we have, and more details about Azure as a platform. So to start with, I'll give a very quick introduction about Aspire Systems. We are a bespoke applications vendor for the media industry. We have 10+ customers in the media and entertainment space in the US. What we are doing today is bringing the technology and expertise that we've gathered when working with the US customers, and we are bringing that to the Indian market. So we are a Gartner listed product engineering services provider. We've been consistently winning Great Place to Work for in India award for the last 3 years. We have a center of excellence on cloud computing and SaaS. We have 200+ member team working on Microsoft technologies. We are an exclusive Microsoft Azure Circle partner in India. This is the solution stack that we have on top of Microsoft technologies. On Azure, we have built media-related solutions, which include digital asset management, cloud storage, content processing, content delivery, and then we have enterprise solutions on top of Microsoft SharePoint and Office 365, which include leave management system, help desk management system, intranet employee collaboration portal, knowledge management system, and Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Link, and all of those. Moving on, these are the two speakers whom we have for today. Vinu Srinivas, who is from Microsoft, has about 14+ years of experience with respect to cloud computing and big data. He's helped a number of customers move on to the cloud. He's helped both ISVs as well as enterprises. Janaki Jayachandran, he's a practice manager of our cloud practice. He's part of Aspire Systems. He's a prolific speaker, and he's been speaking at both NASSCOM and Cloud Connect events. He has 15+ years of software development experience, and he's instrumental in defining the SaaS and cloud computing roadmap for Aspire Systems. I'll leave it to Janaki now to start the webinar.
Thank you, Ganesh, and once again, thanks everyone for joining this session. I'm going to be covering the following agenda. I'll discuss a brief about the market scenario for a media and entertainment industry segment. And we'll also look at some of the challenges that typically is there in that industry. And as Ganesh mentioned, we have worked with several M&D industries in providing solutions. So we have identified few of the common areas where industries belonging to the M&D category can leverage cloud and Azure solutions to build business-specific solutions that can help in leveraging as well as in optimizing their overall business strategy. So we'll start with understanding a brief about the market scenario. Of course, the change in the entire IT industry has been happening at a rapid pace, and when it comes to the M&D industry, there's been a leaps and bounds of changes that have been happening. And one of the key aspects is the digitalization of the overall content and the processing of it and the delivery of it. So there is a huge need today for the media enterprises to create, collaborate, process, store, manage all of this on the digital contents. And as technology keeps changing, the size of these contents as well as the complexity of these contents are also drastically increasing. Added to that, the digitalization has today given the liberty to the consumers to kind of demand the format they want and the the frequency in which they want to see the content, and the delivery mechanism of it. So earlier it used to be more owned by the media enterprises, and they had the kind of luxury to determine the overall delivery of it. But today, with the growth in the digitalization and the growth in the customer base and the various final destinations through which these media contents are delivered have grown pretty vastly, there is a need for aligning the whole business model to meet the consumers' needs. So that's one of the biggest change that has been happening in the overall industry. And from a growth perspective, as you could see there, by 2015, it's been predicted that there will be 43 million internet-connected TVs and over 15 billion of IP-enabled devices and over 1 billion mobile video customers. So this is a huge fragmented base of customers, and one side, it's definitely a great business opportunity for the M&D industry, and as it suggests, the growth has been expected to a large extent, and to leverage that, the industry has to align themselves to meet and serve these customers in the appropriate fashion. So looking at what are the challenges that have been faced by them to kind of progress to that level, one of the important challenges is the ability to monetize the digital assets. Due to the huge growth of the data, of the content and the assets, it's difficult to manage those assets in a way that you can easily retrieve them or you can easily monetize them. It's difficult to keep it that way. Many times what happens, some of these assets are locked down in kind of the traditional model like tapes and other archiving mechanisms, whereby you cannot easily retrieve the data and monetize it. That's been one of the biggest handicap situation for M&D companies. And also the need to have a more flexible and sophisticated content management solution where you can collaborate between multiple stakeholders, you can interact, collaborative editing, collaborative discussions. So that has not happening. So it takes a lot of time. So when you want to interact with people who are particularly spread across the geography, it becomes difficult to collaborate and work in producing the content. And as we saw, the increase in the number of destinations has grown. You have mobile, you have TVs today, you have internet, online. So the number of destinations of these contents have increased, which also means that each of this destination requires the content to be in a certain format and in a certain specific format and the content matter itself. So there is a need to convert these contents to appropriate formats. That way you can serve to the appropriate destinations and of course monetize the content. That's also one of the areas that that today is becoming a challenge. Right? And all of this again from an overall economy perspective, a scale perspective, it is imperial that all of this is done under a certain cost, and the overall economy improvement has to be also there. So broadly speaking, this is how the cloud scenario is forming up for the M&D industry, and primarily driven by the business and consumer forces. Right? So it starts with the increase in consumer connected devices, and also the fact that it's a fragmented digital audience. So the audience base is not a uniform one, it's kind of fragmented into a lot of sectors, and added to that is the faster pace of the market itself, changes happening in the market, the mode of content and the delivery of the content, all of this is changing, and driven by the internal factor of reduction in the IT budgets, and all of this leading to the need to innovate, have newer solutions, deliver newer services, and deliver them in a way that it can quickly reach audience, and of course end of the day the bottom line also has to be improving. So that's where the overall the cloud solution and Azure technologies come into picture, and let's see how some of these business solutions can be possible and can be achieved using the Azure technology itself. So broadly speaking, there are three broad areas in which the business solutions, typical business solutions, can be applied. Now, for each of the M&D companies, some of these solutions may be more appropriate. So it's not necessary that all the areas mentioned here has to be applicable to everybody. But then depending on your business and the areas of interest, you could try to build the appropriate business solution, leveraging the technology underneath it. So to start with, the digital content management is one of the most common areas. And this area revolves around the creation of the content, the storage of it, collaboration between multiple people towards delivering the content itself, and also distributing the digital media and the metadata information. So that comprises of the digital content management. Media business management is around the analytics part of it, kind of identifying some of the trends, user behavior, consumer behaviors, and which things they like and which things is moving fast. So more of providing some insights which can help you make better business decisions. And digital marketing and experience is all about delivery of the content itself in an appropriate fashion, and also leveraging the online and the cloud and Azure solutions towards moving towards the entire digitalization of from a publishing perspective or from a marketing perspective. So those are some of the areas in which solutions can be typically built. So in the following slides, let's look at each of these areas and some of the solutions that are more appropriate for the M&D industry. So to start with the digital content management, let's look at the content storage part. The content storage is one of the most common pain points that we have also seen across all the M&D industry, primarily because of the fact of the data growth and the size of the data itself. So as we could see, the typical and movie file could range anywhere between a 30 GB to a 90 GB, a single movie file, depending on the quality of it, whether it's a standard format or HD format. So assuming that being the case, you can imagine for hundreds of movies, hundreds of episodes of serials, hundreds of audio clippings, video clippings. So the overall size of it is going to be enormous, and this size is going to be growing in a pretty rapid pace, which means you need to have that kind of an infrastructure to support the storage of this data. And many times the storage kind of is all about just placing those files in a format that is retrievable. And typical traditional methods used for this is going by some tapes or going by some archiving mechanisms where the data is kind of archived, it's available, but then the problem is when you need the data, how quickly can you retrieve it back, right? So in terms of content storage, the overall Azure solution provides you a very flexible storage mechanism. You can in fact use it as a supplement of combining it with your existing data storage, as well as use the Azure solution as well. So that you can, for example, you can keep your archives alone on the Azure and keep the live today, the recent content in your in-house. So both the cases are possible, or you can move the complete thing onto the Azure cloud. Now the important thing here is the scalability you get and the kind of flexibility. So as you kind of scale, as the data keeps growing, you don't have to keep thinking of buying more infrastructure to support it. Rather, you're just going to keep using or consuming the storage, and you pay only for what you consume. Unlike in the traditional case where you buy a huge chunk of infrastructure, a storage, but then you may use it only partially, and over a period of time you use it fully. Whereas in terms of the Azure cloud itself, the overall cost of it is going to be based on what you consume in actuals. So that gives a very flexible pricing model, and from a cost wise it becomes a great saving. Content rendering is another typical area where there is a lot of content that are being created, particularly when it comes to graphics creation or graphics insertion into the video content. So all of this requires a huge processing power because some of these movies takes up a huge amount of processing power to generate the kind of graphics that is required. So from an infrastructure perspective, from a production, you may produce only 1 or 2 movies, say for example in a year, but then you need to have that kind of infrastructure all through the year, which is going to be idle and which is not the best use of the cost. So when it comes to content rendering, two things. One, you get an on-demand computing need. So you need more machines. You need a better processing capability. You get it on demand without any delay. And also the fact that there are sophisticated servers that are available, we call the HPC servers, high performance computing servers, and where you also have more graphics supported kind of capabilities. So it's not just computing power, but also related to the graphics generation of it and rendering of it. So all of this again is available as an on-demand and can be consumed. Content processing, again, as we saw, there is a need for delivering the same content in different formats to different destinations. So let it be your television or the online or the mobile. So there is a need for transcoding the content. Transcoding is one of the most, again, common areas in a digital content management scenario. So you need to have the flexibility to transcode these into multiple formats, again on demand, because you don't know from a business perspective when you would need what format and how the situation is going to change. So you need a very flexible solution where at any given point in time you should be able to convert the format from one particular format to another particular format. Now again, that is possible using the Azure solutions, Azure Media Services. Azure itself supports a set of transcoding options. On top of it, there are several solutions that are built on top of Azure, which supports a wide range of transcoding options. And again, all this transcoding takes a lot of computation power. So you need a huge amount of computation power during the transcoding phase. So for example, a movie from transcoding from one format to another format may take even 4 to 6 hours, or even more than that depending on the size of the movie. So how soon can you do the transcoding and how soon can you deliver the content, because based on that your monetization revenues could also differ. So all of that is now available as a flexible option from an Azure Media Service perspective. Content management revolves around the collaboration part of it. As you saw, there is always a need. One is the content production itself, which is going to come from different sources in the form of videos or images or documents. But then you need different stakeholders, different kind of roles to kind of author it, edit it, and create the final content. And to do that, you need a set of user management. You need certain workflow in place so that you know who approves it and then who verifies it, and then who does the kind of a final check on it, right? Overall verification of it. So there is a set of need for collaboration, workflow, and overall involvement from different stakeholders. So that again is kind of possible from a Azure solution perspective, and it's much more from a cost perspective, much more lower in cost, because it's going to be again from a cloud perspective, which is on demand. So moving to the digital marketing and experience, content delivery is one of the most sought areas again, because you, of course, the more content you deliver, the more it's going to reflect on the monetization part as well as from a reaching to the audience perspective. So CDN plays a very crucial role. The CDN provided by Microsoft Azure. It comes with 24 global nodes where your contents can be automatically replicated on these global nodes and can be delivered automatically depending on where the user is requesting this information. So for example, if I'm requesting this information from India, then it can sort this particular node. It can pick the closest node and start delivering or rendering the content from that node. And whereas the person from US is going to request it, it's going to pick the node closest to them. So all of this is done in an abstracted way, which means you don't have to really bother about replicating this content. And overall, this also improves the delivery performance because the content is going to be delivered in the closest range. So overall performance and delivery of the content also becomes optimal. Digital publishing is another area. There's typically moving away from the traditional model of taking up content, moving away from that and moving into the digital media segment, so that you can deliver a rich e-reading experience, or it could be text, video, or any other format. And you can also build your own distribution channels, digital distribution channels, through which you can also kind of create revenues. And we have the Microsoft Solution Framework for Digital Publishing, it provides a kind of a blueprint, an architecture blueprint for building such solutions. Digital marketing in another area which could be really tapped in, where you can create your overall marketing campaigns, your overall marketing efforts can be automated and brought through Azure services. And interestingly, there is something called a template-driven digital marketing websites provided by Microsoft Azure. So in case if you want to create a website for a particular movie or for a particular kind of a serial, it becomes much easier for you to launch these sites on a pretty rapid way and have this available to reach audiences in forms of a digitalized manner. And CDN again helps to achieve this when it comes to delivery of any content as part of the marketing content. Gaming is another whole big area as such. Of course, today online gaming becomes is one of the key composition from a gaming industry perspective, and it's also involving about social gaming involves about a lot of people accessing the system at the same time. So one, from a scalability perspective, you need to have a large scale of infrastructure, and two, the scalability has to be really flexible, which means you don't know when people are going to be playing. So sometimes the peak scenarios could be happening at any point in time. So you need to have the capabilities to support those peaks and also be able to scale under the given conditions. So again, cloud and Azure kind of gives a very good platform for achieving this. And some of the industries have already followed that, because you don't know initially how the game is going to be received by the audience. So this infrastructure gives you the flexibility to start in a small way, and once you see things are moving, you can always scale up in a pretty quick fashion. Moving on to media and business management, analytics plays a very important role in terms of the decision making aspects. So you might have heard about the recent program of Satyamev Jayate. So if you go to the website of Satyamev Jayate, you could also see statistics around how the program is being received by the audience, what kind of responses is being received by different episodes of the same program. So this gives a very clear insight to the decision makers as to which kind of contents are being received well by the users. So is it more around social issues, or is it more around any social problems or any specific issues that are currently happening? So it gives an overall insight, and also kind of gives you a feeler of the overall end user audience, trying to get a pulse of it, which was earlier very difficult to achieve. Today, with the concept of big data, it is very much possible to kind of figure out how people are responding to these different events. Now, this is an example of it, but it could be anything related to analytics, could be number of people visiting your site, or the kind of contents they view more, or it could be the areas they are more accessing. So the whole analytics could be based on the solution or the industry that you are currently into. But the whole point is having this kind of a solution earlier used to be a very huge, expensive one, but today with the cloud and Azure services, it becomes pretty much a reality for even small and medium businesses to have this kind of analytics support. And the last one is on the data marketplace. Azure also has a data marketplace which allows or provides a facility for the content owners to publish any kind of content and make it available as a service, so that any other third-party consumers or any other companies, if they want to leverage the content, they could very well leverage it through the marketplace. And of course, this becomes one of your other revenue channels as well. So for example, if you have, say, the subtitles of all the movies, you can just package it and make it available as a service, as a data. So if any of the other companies would need the subtitles, they can simply come to the marketplace and buy the subtitles of a particular movie, and then they start using it and they pay for it depending on the use case. So this is another business solution area that could be leveraged. So this is a summary of all the things we have seen so far. So broadly speaking, 10 areas, and the solution applicability by the vertical industry, if we look at, of course, all industries can leverage it, but this slide gives you an idea of which industry can leverage which kind of solution, or they can make use of it or better use of it. So right from broadcasting to film industry, publishing, ad agencies, and gaming. So this will give you an idea of the effectiveness of these solutions on by verticals. The same comparison by comparing with the cloud applicability, right? So when it comes to cloud, there are a few things which are the main components of cloud. One is the storage itself, so you can have a set of things stored. The storage itself is available as a service in the cloud. And then is the computational power, processing power, which could be available from cloud. And then the databases, it could be structured databases, RDBMS kind of databases, or it could be blobs kind of unstructured databases. So both the databases are supported in the cloud. And then your I/O operations, typical delivery of it, bandwidth, and those kind of things, and CDN as well. So these are the major building blocks of the Azure solution itself. And this slide will give you an idea of how each of the solutions leverages those components. For example, if you take content storage, it's just about storage and the input and output of it, but nothing to do with computational power. Whereas if you take content rendering, you leverage both storage, but more importantly, you leverage the computational power to render those contents. And this slide talks about the relation between these solutions. So most of the time when you go for a solution implementation, you may want to pick more than one solution. And this slide gives you a relevance of these solutions between them. So if you take a content storage part of it, so the content storage goes more, or it's more effective along with content processing or content management or content delivery, right? So similarly, each of the solutions and its relevance to the rest of the solutions has been described in the slide. And finally, trying to see a mapping of how these things are mapped to the Microsoft Cloud technologies. So you can see that there are so many technologies that are available from Microsoft perspective, from Cloud and Azure perspective. So each of these things are available under various segments. For example, if you take the collaboration part of it, it's available as a service. There is Microsoft Dynamics CRM that is available. You have Office 365 collaboration. And also you can build custom solutions on top of these stacks using the Azure platform, leveraging SQL Azure, leveraging the blobs that are available, or just the computational power which is available as Windows Azure computation. So with this, I would summarize my part of it. And Vinu, the other speaker we have today, will dwell more into the Azure media technology itself, the media services. So what we saw now is more from a solution perspective, from a business area, potential solution area. Then we can now see in the next segment how the media services itself works from a technology perspective to support these solutions, or support building custom solutions on these areas. So with that, I will hand over it to Mr. Vinu. Thank you.
Thanks, Janaki. One quick check. Is my screen? Janaki, I'm going to use my presentation.
Yeah, you have to share it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we will be able to see.
Okay, great. Sure. So thanks a lot for your time. So I'm part of the Windows Azure group, primarily part of the what we thought we'll cover quickly is give an introduction to what Windows Azure stack is. Today, if you really look at it, the entire transformation to cloud is primarily based on 4 tenets, where you really talk about pooled resources, which primarily drives the economies of scale, essentially driving down the cost of operation. The whole thing is around self-service based model, wherein the infrastructure or the services what you are requiring, they are primarily available as a self-service mode, and you can start consuming from the time you would need, and then go ahead with it. And the biggest advantage what cloud also provides is that the elasticity part of it. As Janaki had just mentioned some time back, many times the it's quite it has been a pretty typical way to really size what is a peak load and then like start really investing on the particular hardware and the infrastructure for it. But subsequently, when there's an elastic need, when there's a grow up or grow down, a scale up or scale down, we really realize that either the infrastructure is underutilized or it is like already like it's just hanging. So cloud really brings in that elastic component wherein you are able to scale up or scale down based on the kind of need what you have on the usage base. And the fourth real paradigm around today's transformation is that we are all talking about usage-based charging. So today, essentially, we are really looking at seeing how we can actually start consuming and pay per what we use, and rather than not pay for the entire capital what we have. So this primarily drives in the economics, agility, and focus what we really look at. So one quick, given that there's a whole lot of discussion around cloud, we just thought we'll do a quick summary of what exactly we really talk about Azure and where does the various Microsoft stack comes into play. So typically when you look at any application stack, in your data center, we would actually end up managing the entire thing right from the hardware networking to the application stack and data stack. When it comes to infrastructure as a service, where Windows Azure starts coming in, we provide the stack all the way to virtualization, the virtualized layer, and the OS and runtime and application is available as a service for you. The vendor in this case, Microsoft Windows Azure, so we manage the backend infrastructure which is available here. And when it comes to the next level of service, what we call the platform as a service, we also end up managing your application or the OS runtime middleware as well as the patching and regular hardening of the OS activities what happens. So essentially customers end up managing their applications as well as data. So and the third kind of cloud services what we have is a fully abstracted service wherein you just go ahead and then subscribe to services. So classical example is email as a service, or Office 365 what we have typically would fall under software as a service, and Windows Azure caters to either platform as a service or infrastructure as a service based on the kind of services what you would consume. One of the biggest things when you realize cloud, when you really see cloud, is that cloud really brings in the economy of scale. And here's a simple example of showing how the total cost of ownership per server comes down when you increase the number of server count in your data center. So you can realize that like it becomes very prohibitively expensive to really go ahead, set up a data center at this scale to really try to drive the TCO or TCO here. So that's where providers like Microsoft, we come into play, where we have our own infrastructure on the Azure infrastructure here, which falls in the public cloud category. We would help you drive the economy of scale here. A quick summary of where Windows Azure is primarily available. We have it across 8 data centers in the world. For the Asia Pacific region, we have it in Singapore and Hong Kong, and the other markets in North America and EMEA. So these are the 8 data centers where we have the Windows Azure, and there are 24 CDN nodes. And these major data centers are primarily the same data centers which host many other Microsoft services like Hotmail and Live Messenger and so on. So these are data centers which are heavily automated, and the state of art in terms of the infrastructure and technology what you have. Essentially, when we look at Windows Azure in one single slide, I would say it primarily starts with abstracting the global physical infrastructure what we have to enable you to do an automated management, what we do in the backend, providing an elastic infrastructure for you, and where you charge on usage-based model. So broadly there are 3 different services what we have: compute, data management, and networking. So compute primarily is a way in which computational services could be subscribed upon. Either you would go for VMs or the virtual machines, typically what we call the infrastructure as a service, and the platform as a service is a cloud service here. So these are the broad 3 categories of services what we have. So I'm not going to get into detail of these, but rather go ahead and spend time around one of the higher level services what we have on the media space what we have here. So CDN caching. So these are various high-level services. What is there as a part of the Windows Azure stack, and Windows Azure stack, if you really, if you see, is open completely, wherein we are open to have applications running either Node.js, PHP, or Java, and not just Microsoft .NET platform. So that way, Windows Azure brings in a pure elastic environment which is completely open and cost effective from a customer perspective. So the way we really look at cross-platform connectivity is one single example of how various resources, whether it's in Azure or on your on-premise, it could be really connected. Whether it's going to be having a having a private network, wherein you could look at having a network manage two different subnets across Azure as well as on-premise, to all the way to the data synchronization, where we have the SQL Azure Data Sync from a relational database data synchronization perspective. Azure essentially is world-class by design in terms of physical features. As I said earlier, the state of art, where we have actually invested in for various other Microsoft services which is currently running, and we share the same data center across them. Distributed geographically, so customers who want to really look at geographic distribution across the world could really leverage this and sort of create a DR network as well. And from an availability standpoint, we give a financially backed SLA, wherein we guarantee a 99.9% uptime, and each of the services are isolated completely, so that there is a very clear line of clear boundary and clear line of defense across different services here. And from a compliance perspective, where one of the biggest question what a lot of customers have is that we adhere to the strict compliance and security norms what we currently manage across, and I think one of the service, yeah. So this slide just summarizes the kind of compliance norms what Windows Azure Data Center as well as the platform really adheres to, whether it's ISO 27001 or various sectoral compliances, like for example HIPAA for health services and so on. So Windows Azure Data Center as well as the platform is certified for this particular, for various of these compliance standards what we have. Going straight into the Azure Media Services, Azure Media Services was primarily came out with the context that there's a huge amount of explosion in traffic of internet, whether it's going to be the kind of devices or the endpoints what is going to be consumed. We are no longer talking of just phones or TVs, which is there. We are looking at various other devices, and interestingly, we ourselves have been seeing that video consumption over Xbox, and not just gaming, is one of the most fastest growing fastest growing usage of Xbox as an entertainment console and not just a pure gaming console. So today we are all talking about IP-based delivery and not just a conventional delivery here, and that's the biggest context in which we are really seeing it. And on the other side, we see that there's a whole lot of complexity which is growing up. Various form factors, various screen sizes, a lot of different scenarios where customers want to really look at monetizing the content, whether they want to look at purchase, rental, subscription, or want to look at, besides that, there's a whole lot of security, a whole lot of formats that keeps coming in, whether it's codecs and containers. So a whole lot of complexity which is actually growing up. So with these contexts in mind, so we came out with this service called Windows Azure Media Services. Essentially, it is an aggregation of the best of the breed Microsoft Media Platform components, which have been brought together as a service on Windows Azure, and where we allow our partners as well as customers to build your own services on top of this platform. So what is really, what are the key value proposition it drives? One is it's pretty simple and easy to use. You're able to quickly set up your own media workflow, an end-to-end workflow which you could actually set up, which is truly scalable on a very global scale. We are also keeping it as open and flexible as possible, wherein we are not just saying that you would use the Microsoft stack. As I show you down, we also leave it open for customers to bring your own IP onto it, build your services on top of it, or have third-party partners who could provide services here. So essentially, this gives a very powerful and a cost-effective media services platform, which helps you to really build your end-to-end media workflow. Now, what do we really mean by that? When we say Windows Azure Media Services, what are the various components in it. So it starts from ingestion of the content. So typically when we look at a standard media processing, it starts from ingestion of content. Then the content is encoded or transcoded to different encoder formats, and subsequently format conversion, if at all you want to really look at transmuxing it to different formats. And one of the biggest challenges what many of our customers come back is content protection. Because today with the kind of proliferation of what we call torrents and other peer-to-peer networks, content protection becomes the biggest challenge, and content owners as well as content aggregators, it's a huge monetary loss which these piracy and other things brings in. So content protection becomes a very, very important factor for many of our customers here. And subsequently, Windows Azure Media Services also helps you build an online on-demand streaming service for on-demand video, or even use the Windows Azure Media Services from a live streaming point of view. We also provide analytics on video analytics perspective, and also give an ad insertion engine as a part of the Windows Azure Media Services here. So what does it really mean? When we say what we really bring to offer when we said open and flexible is this particular slide, wherein we are saying that when the native Windows Azure Media Services has an Azure Media Encoder. So for people who are familiar with the expression encoder, it's expression encoder as a service which is available on Azure. So you could actually use an Azure Media Encoder. From a content protection perspective, you could actually use a Microsoft PlayReady packager out of the Azure stack, Azure Media Services stack, or you could use very many of our third-party content protection providers who would be available on the Windows Azure Media stack. And subsequently, from an on-demand perspective, we could use on-demand IS Smooth Streaming Origin, or also look at third-party providers like Wowza. So we would have Wowza as one of the partners who would have the Origin services as a part of the Azure Media Services. So this is precisely what we really talk about. And when we really look at it, how can you really use it? One of the most simplest form of using Windows Azure Media Services is building end-to-end workflow, wherein the entire ingestion starting from wherein we provide you capabilities to ingest using UDP and not just HTTP. So we provide UDP upload capabilities so that you are able to better utilize the connectivity from an internet perspective, given that Windows Azure Data Center is connected only via internet. It becomes very important that UDP or faster upload is possible, so that's what we provide here. And it's not just a simple UDP upload, it's secure UDP. So you could actually go ahead, do an AES encryption from the time the content leaves your network, goes on to Azure and stored there. So it's an encrypted ingestion what you could actually do from a content ingestion point of view. So we have UDP providers like Aspera as partners who provide the UDP services on Windows Azure Media Services. Once the ingestion happens, it could be subsequently transcoded to contents, transcoded to kind of encoders what is needed. So the transcoding capability again is part of that, and subsequently format conversion, and the entire workflow could be set up here. Another way of using Windows Azure Media Services is in a hybrid model, wherein you could leverage some of the IP what you have created on premise, and you'd want to really leverage them. You could actually have them as a part of your workflow here, and the rest of the stack happens on Azure. So this is something which we see a lot of broadcasters and other people really leveraging, because some of the broadcasters have let's say a content protection based on devices, so like sort of set-top boxes. So the content protection on the set-top boxes could be taken offline, and then like the rest of the media processing stack sits on Azure. And the third stack essentially is subsequent. Once the entire processing happens, you could essentially from a delivery perspective, you have an option to store all the content on Azure, or you could actually take the content and start downloading it into your network and then start consuming the way you want. Or by virtue of keeping it on Azure, you are able to leverage the scalable storage platform what we provide. Now, just to give you a perspective, every data which goes into the Azure Data Center is replicated thrice. So essentially, there are three copies of each data present in one single data center. And we provide also another capability called geo redundancy. You could actually have data redundancy between Singapore and Hong Kong. So typically, you end up actually having 6 replicated copies of your data, and So that's something what is available. That's a typical cloud storage as a service which is there. So you could use that, use Azure CDN or third-party CDN, like for example Akamai, another third-party CDN. You could use that to consume and then distribute your content down here and stream it down here. So it could be down to rental, subscription. So we really looking at various platforms here. So essentially, architecturally, if you look at it, the way we see it is that all these different components which is there in the workflow, whether it's ingestion, encoding, all these are what we call the media services processors. So all these processors are available. So the blue colored processors are essentially the on-demand processors, and the green ones are all the live services, essentially ones which primarily cater to the live market, and the blue ones for the VOD market. So you could actually bring in your own media processor, wherein we will give you capability to wrap it and put it on the Azure Media Services stack. And once it's there, all these processors are accessible through REST APIs. So it becomes technology agnostic. So you could use either a .NET. So even here, these processors are available programmatically from REST APIs or through .NET APIs, where we created a .NET wrapper for all these REST API based APIs which is here. So you could use .NET to build your media processing workflow, or any other platform what you want to really use to create your workflow here. So that's how we really give access to the Azure Media Services components. And from a device perspective, the way we really envisage and the way Windows Azure Media Services would be is that like we would be able to help you stream down to devices starting from Windows 8, Silverlight, Windows Phone, Xbox, HTML5, Flash, and even adaptive streaming to across iOS devices through HLS or Android, or even set-top boxes through porting kits. So we see this is how we see really all the various devices being targeted towards, and this could be through either the Azure CDN or the partner CDNs what we have. Now essentially when we look at it, there are two different ways you can actually integrate your workflow to it. One way is what we call the build-in, wherein if you have certain IP what you have created and you want to incorporate that particular IP as a part of the Azure Media Services workflow, you build in that particular IP onto the on-demand pipeline what is given in what we offer as Windows Azure Media Services stack. If you want to build on these capabilities and create a sort of pipeline and service on top of it, we call it a build-on integration capability, where you're able to build on the native Azure Services stack and build your services and subsequently deliver it to your consumers. So these are the two different things. And one of the questions what a lot of my customers ask is like, who's really using it? So this is a good example today when we're talking about Olympics. So London Olympics actually is being broadcasted live across a few countries, and this is done by one of our partners called Delta 3, who's actually created the entire content management stack on Windows Azure Media Services. And this essentially targets platforms like Silverlight, iOS, Windows Phone, and Android, and it's streaming down to Dublin, Chicago, and South America, and there's a whole lot of content which is being delivered to them. So this really shows that the scale at which the Windows Azure Media Services is currently available for customers like you to really leverage upon. So I think that brings to the end of what I want to actually talk about, and I leave it to the audience to actually for any question answers.
Thanks, Vinu. I think we got a few questions now. Janaki will try to answer a couple of them for now, and maybe the rest he can take it up offline. I think one of the questions that has been coming up is, I think we've also heard this in some of our prospect calls. So, is it possible to process content from the cloud itself? Is one of the questions that we've been having. How possible is it, Janaki?
Yeah, so when you look at Windows Azure Media Services, it's actually a content processing platform, We actually have, as you said, encoders as well as even some of the stack, like some of the customers, what we want to do is that like work on some of the pre-processing stack around building metadata and stuff. So we provide the capability for customers to bring in their IP, which they have sort of created, and embed as a part of the Azure Media Services stack itself. So the entire processing can technically happen on Azure. Once the content is uploaded onto the Azure storage, pulling it onto a particular Azure Media Services stack or outside Azure Media Services, let's say you want to host it on a typical VM. So the way you one would ideally host a particular processing platform on premise today on a Windows server, you could actually take the same virtual machine which is there on Windows Server and without any modification take it onto Azure. So on Azure you can actually do the same processing without much of modification at all.
Yeah, thanks, Manu. Another question that was asked is, how does the pricing work? Could you please throw some light on this?
Yeah, so pricing is pricing works on for various pricing works on independently for each of the services. So when you look at compute, the way we charge compute per se, each servers we actually charge in terms of VMs. So typically the small instance, what we have, the retail pricing of it works to somewhere around 12 cents per hour. So it starts from that, and there are 5 different sizes of VMs. When it comes to storage, we charge per gigabyte of content. So there are 2 different offerings available. One could choose to have in one data center alone, and one could pay a nominal extra price and then choose to replicate it in another data center in the same time zone. Essentially, let's say if you're in Singapore, you want to have a replication into Hong Kong, pay a small delta and then store it. Then CDN is charged on data egress, the kind of bandwidth what will be going out. Any data which is input, when any data which is pushed into the Azure data center, that egress is free. Any data moves out, the ingress is free, the egress is charged. So we charge any data which is moving out of the Azure data center. CDN again we charge for bandwidth. From the Azure Media Services processing, the media processing stack, we charge per gigabyte of media content which is going to be processed. So essentially, when you look at various services, the charging is all per hour or sort of per gigabyte or something. It's purely usage-based kind of model. Yeah, you can actually go ahead to windowsazure.com/pricing. You can actually get to know the various services, how they are priced on a retail price level.
Okay. Yeah. Another question is about the security. I mean, all the while I think companies are used to holding the content on premise, and if they're moving to cloud, how secure is the content?
Yeah, so one of the biggest concern for all of us here is data security, and the way we actually address it, as I said, ingestion into the if it's a media content which is going to be ingested through the Azure Media Services, we provide AES encryption for every content which goes outside your network. The moment it leaves your desktop, it's AES encrypted and stored in Azure storage as an encrypted format. Besides that, we also have what are these compliances what we really adhere to. So essentially we have a very strong audit process where we actually have the Azure data center as well as Azure platform both certified for ISO 27001. So that way we certainly take compliance and security, data security to be the biggest concern for all of us, and we are as much paranoid as any of our customers in terms of your data is concerned. So because these are the data centers which also hosts a lot of customer data, as I said, these also host data like Hotmail and MSN and other online transaction systems what we have in Xbox Live and so on and so forth. So they are heavily secure from a content security perspective. So we can actually understand if there's some specific details you would interested. One of the areas you can actually go is windowsazure.com, and there's something called Trust Center. So that where we actually really give you an up-to-date status on security and various compliances what we go ahead over time to time. For example, recently we got the HIPAA compliances from a medical services point of view. So and it's an evolution. So as we move on, so we keep working towards getting industry compliances from a security as well as compliance point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Vinu. I think that's it for now. I mean, if there are a few other questions which I think it will make sense to answer offline. Yeah, thanks, Vinu, and thanks, Janaki. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll also be sending you a recorded version of this webinar to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.